Payday 3 was released far too early, and it needed at least 6 months to a year more in the oven to pass for much more than a rush product. Okay, let's back up a little. I've been playing Payday 3 on and off for a good couple of weeks now. I say on and off because we all know the stories by now. Payday 3 had one of the worst launches of 2023. Broken servers, matchmaking taking forever, and forced downtime were only a few of the issues the developers at Payday 3 have had to cope with in the last couple of weeks. The unfortunate reality of this situation, however, is that it could have all been avoided. Wanna know why? Keep watching, consider subscribing, and let's get into my review of one of the most disastrous releases of 2023. Payday 3 actually provided me with the easiest first impressions block to write of any review I've ever written. Know why? Everyone had the exact same experience, and it looked something like this. Isn't it beautiful? Sometimes you've got to really experience a launch this bad to properly appreciate the beauty of the early access game. Anyway, this is how the game looked for the full day of release. Want to know how the second game went? Well, I loaded into precisely 3 games on the second day. One was half full, one broke after matchmaking got me into the game, and one chucked me into a game with 3 bots, 2 of which ran into walls and each other for the first 5 minutes of the match. What was the other one doing? Well, he seemed to love leaning against the wall and subsequently getting arrested by security guards, so I left him to it. I blamed these fun factors on the fact that the servers were utterly bugged rather than the AI itself, by the way. By the third day, Payday 3 was just barely playable, and I managed to find at least a couple of games that were bot free and slightly laggy, but mostly functional. There were also 2 scheduled downtimes in the first week. So that's my story of the first impression that I had of the game. Fortunately, it does improve from here, so stay strapped in and it does get better, I promise. Let's move on as to why Payday 3 isn't a total disaster, and that's in the gameplay. I'm actually going to be covering gameplay and story in the same block, and I'm also going to be doing the story first, as it makes absolutely no sense, and I'd really like to get to the positive part of the review, thank you very much. I'm not just a complainer, I promise. Anyway, the story. So remember that little known, massively popular prequel to Payday 3, Payday 2? Well, forget everything you learned about the characters, every little bit of hope you had for some continuity, and any expectation that you had for this to be a step up from the previous entry. Payday 3's story basically resets the events from the previous game, though not in a way that makes any sense. The old characters are all back, but they're back to doing small-time heists, as if the events of the last game never happened, but they'll continually make references to things that happened in the last game. It's utterly bizarre, but I guess that gives the whole gang a reason to be doing smaller jobs again as opposed to the insanity they were getting up to by the end of the last game. So with that out of the way, it's finally time for some positive stuff. The gameplay in Payday 3 is very much an unchanged improvement from Payday 2. It's still definitely a Payday game, hence the unchanged, but a little bit more up to date. The shooting mechanics are far, far better, even to a point where I'd say that this is actually one of the most enjoyable shooters of 2023. Shooting is smooth, and recoil actually feels semi-realistic now, which is a plus. The police in Payday 3 have also enjoyed a massive upgrade. They now attack in phases, which is absolutely fantastic, as it really makes the stages after you inevitably lose your cool and get found out more than just a mad shootout with a local supply of infinite police. There's hostage trading for resources, although I really wish there was a way to trade for armor or ammo, and if there is, I haven't quite worked out how to do it yet. The New York police are also a lot smarter this time around, feeling slightly more like people as opposed to targets who happen to carry guns. These police will actually occasionally use tactics that don't involve standing around waiting to be shot, and there are several unique units that are there to throw a spanner in the works too. The biggest problem with Payday 3 is that the gameplay is as much about what isn't there as what is. For example, most of the heists here are great and really well thought out, but there just aren't enough of them. That's where the unfinishedness of Payday 3 really starts to show itself. The gun mod system also feels unfinished, as the sights do make a difference in accuracy, but I'll be damned if I've noticed one bit of difference where I've actually equipped anything else to any of my chosen weapons of mass police destruction. Menu AI just seems very unfinished and unpolished, as well as the lack of ways to play. These are all issues that could definitely have been addressed and ironed out had the game been delayed, but of course, where's the fun in that? Let's get to a little note on technical performance. Oh, particle effects, you destroyers of reasonable frame rates. I'd say that Payday 3 performance is actually pretty good for the most part. There's definitely some decent options for customization too, although it's not the most exhaustive list I've seen this year. If you've seen any trailers or gameplay, you would have noticed the many particle effects that occur on screen during a heist in Payday 3. Do those affect performance, you ask? Why yes they do. My laptop is decently powerful for a not too expensive machine, rocking an RTX 4060 laptop GPU and an AMD Ryzen 7 7735HS chip, meaning that I can run most games on high and still have a decent 60 to 100 FPS on display. I was delighted to find out that upon loading into a tutorial of Payday 3, and yes, you should do tutorials, they don't do the best job explaining the game, but they definitely do help. That my game ran out of monitor native frame rate at 165 FPS. Beautiful. However, I say that, but when I actually got down to shooting a gun or exploding anything, the frame rate dropped down to around the mid-20s. Make sure that your particle effects are down to medium if you're running a similar rig to mine, as it's really not ideal in the middle of a shootout with police with grenades to be running through what looks like and feels like a PowerPoint. So how good does Payday 3 look if it's able to run this well? The answer? Actually better than you might think. I've played rush games that performed far worse than Payday 3. I've also played rush games that looked far worse than Payday 3 as well. It's definitely a huge step in graphical quality from Payday 2, although that is an old game. I was genuinely impressed when I loaded in, and I think the majority of you will be too, as long as you didn't go in there expecting a God of War Ragnarok looking graphical behemoth. Keep your expectations reasonable, as this is a AA title from a relatively small developer that's had huge issues with money during this development cycle, and you're sure to be impressed. So what, on the whole, do I think of Payday 3? I'm actually really impressed that it came out looking and playing this well, but I do think that this for sure needed more time to cook. The launch on Game Pass will definitely have helped boost the popularity of this game, but the developers have more or less squandered every bit of player trust when it comes to Payday 3 with the state of its disastrous launch. In fact, the more that I play, the more that I'm impressed with what's been accomplished here, but the more that I also see that could definitely have been improved. There's a perfectly capable heist shooter hidden beneath all the jank, but I'm not sure this is worth paying full price for until more has been added and the servers have been totally fixed. If you have Game Pass though, this is a great game to pick up with a few friends. Payday 3 has more than a few rough edges here and there, but if you can look past that and get to the good time beneath all of that, then I would say that it's absolutely worth picking up just in 6 months' time after a couple of the DLCs the developers are promising for the game have been released. With that being said though, what did you think of Payday 3? Have you been able to play much over the last couple of weeks? And if you did, what did you think? Let me know down in the comments below, be sure to subscribe, and with that being said guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye, and have fun in New York. Just be sure not to annoy the Infinite Police. They love throwing a taser into the works, or sending out ninjas. It's Payday 3, of course there are police ninjas.